Listen to me now. I want you to picture a scene. A room filled with the loudest voices, the strongest powers, the people who believe they control the world. They walk with arrogance. They look down on others. They believe that their money, their armies, their influence makes them invincible. They have spoken for decades as if the rest of the world exists only to obey. But then, in that silence between their arrogance and their certainty, one word dropped. One word like a hammer, like the weight of an iron fist slamming against the table. And that one word shook the walls, broke the silence, and shattered their illusion of control. That one word didn't come from their own mouth. It came from the spirit of a nation that has survived for thousands of years, endured every storm, resisted every empire, and risen again and again stronger than before. That word was not just a sound. It was not just a phrase. It was power. It was defiance. It was the voice of a civilization refusing to kneel. And when it landed, when it cut through the noise, the mighty, the powerful, the arrogant, suddenly they didn't know how to respond. This is the reality. For decades, one side of the world believed they could dictate terms to everyone else. They believed they could decide who wins and who loses, who is respected and who is ignored. They believed that intimidation was enough. But intimidation works only until someone looks them straight in the eyes and refuses to be afraid. That is what happened. A single word, calm, measured, fearless, stood against the thunder of their threats. And for the first time in a long time, they realized they were not dealing with weakness. They were not dealing with submission. They were not dealing with someone begging for approval. They were dealing with strengths. Strength is not about muscles alone. It is not about tanks, not about bombs, not about money in the bank. Real strength is about conviction. It is about the unshakable belief that your nation, your people, your values are not for sale, that your dignity is not negotiable. That you can stand alone if necessary, but you will not bend. And that is why that word carried the weight of mountains. It was not said with anger. It was not shouted. It did not need to be. It was delivered with precision, with clarity, with the kind of composure that only true confidence gives. Imagine the scene again, the so-called masters of the world leaning back in their chairs, waiting for submission. But what they heard instead was resistance. They expected begging. What they received was strength. And strength has a way of exposing weakness. Because the ones who believe they control everything are often the ones most afraid of losing control. And in that moment when the word dropped, you could see it. Their eyes shifted, their faces hardened, their arrogance cracked. Because deep inside they knew they were facing a new reality. The reality is this: the world is changing. For too long, power flowed in one direction. Orders went out and the rest of the world was supposed to obey, but that time is over. The new world is not built on obedience, it is built on equality, on respect, on the courage to say no. That one word did not just challenge a country, it challenged an entire mindset. It told them, the age of dominance is finished. The age of partnership, of fairness, of dignity, that is what is rising. And make no mistake, this is not just about one leader or one nation or one moment. This is about a shift in the very foundations of global power. When you lift weights in the gym, you learn something very important. The body grows only when you challenge it. If you lift the same weight every day, you don't grow. But when you push harder, when you fight against resistance, that is when you become stronger. The world is like that too. And now for the first time, the old powers are facing real resistance. They are being forced to grow or break. They don't like it. But here's the truth. Growth is not optional. You cannot stay on top forever by intimidation. You cannot control forever by fear, because fear is temporary. Respect is permanent, and respect is earned, not demanded. That word earned respect, not only for the one who said it, but for the entire nation behind it. It reminded the world that strength comes in many forms. Military strength is one, economic strength is another. But moral strength is the foundation of them all. Without it, all the rest collapses. With it, even the greatest empire cannot shake you. You know why that word shook America? Because it revealed their biggest weakness, the inability to control everything. For decades, they believed they could walk into any room, any nation, any negotiation, and their voice would be final. But now they face a voice that says, no. They face a nation that says, we will not follow your script. We will write our own. And once one nation does this, others begin to rise too. And so, one word becomes an echo. That echo becomes a movement. That movement becomes unstoppable. Think about history. Every empire, no matter how mighty, believed it was eternal. Rome thought so. The British thought so. They all thought they would last forever. But history laughs at arrogance. History shows us that the only thing eternal is change. And now change is here. The balance of power is shifting. The ones who once dictated are now being questioned. The ones who once commanded are now being challenged. And all it takes is one word to light the fire. This is not about hate. Well, this is not about revenge. This is about respect. The world is not a battlefield where one side must dominate. The world is a gym where every nation must train, must struggle, must grow stronger. And when every nation is strong, the whole world benefits. Yeah. But when one side tries to keep the others weak, eventually the weak rise up. And that is exactly what we are witnessing now. When I hear that word, I don't just hear defiance, I hear pride, I hear pride, I hear history. I hear the voices of millions who refuse to be forgotten. I hear the roar of a civilization that has seen everything: conquerors, colonizers, empires, and survived them all. That word carries the memory of struggle, the pain of sacrifice, and the determination to never again bow down. And that is why it shook the mighty. Because they know that such strength cannot be bought, cannot be threatened, cannot be silenced. You have to understand something very clearly. The ones who dominate today are afraid of only one thing: it was in control. And control is lost not when armies are defeated, not when money runs out, but when fear disappears. As soon as you are no longer afraid of them, they have no power left. That one word destroyed fear. It told them, we are not afraid of your threats, we are not afraid of your pressure, we are not afraid of your approval, we stand on our own. That is power. That is the kind of power that no weapon can destroy. Now look forward. The world has heard it. The people have seen it. The curtain has been pulled back. The illusion of invincibility has been shattered. The future will not be shaped by the loudest voices of the old powers. It will be shaped by the strongest wills of the rising ones. And the rising ones are many. Every time they see courage, they find courage. They find courage. Every time they see defiance, strength. What? Strength. Every time they see dignity, they find hope. And once hope spreads, no one can stop it. This is why the moment matters. This is why the word matters. It is not about one country shaking another. It is about the world shaking free of old chains. It is about humanity rising to demand respect, fairness, equality. That word was like a bell ringing in the night, waking everyone from their sleep. And now the world is awake. I tell you this with certainty. We are entering a new age. An age where power will not be decided by arrogance, but by resilience. Where influence will not be imposed, but earned. Where leadership will not be forced, but followed. And those who cannot adapt will fall. Those who cannot respect others will be left behind. Those who believe they can intimidate forever will find themselves isolated. The iron rule of life is this: strength respects strength. The gym teaches you that. Politics teaches you that. History teaches you that. If you want to be respected, you must stand tall. You must be unbreakable. You must look into the eyes of the powerful and say, I will not bow. That is what happened in that moment. That is what shook America. One word can start a revolution. One word can end fear. One word can change history. And this is only the beginning, because now the world has seen what is possible. Now the world has felt the shift. Now the world knows that the old order is no longer untouchable. The question is not whether change will come. The question is how fast and how far it will go. A decisive word can redraw the balance of the world. You have to understand the gravity of that. We live in a time where speeches are often filled with empty promises, with complicated phrases that are meant to confuse, distract, and control. But when someone cuts through the noise with clarity, with power, with absolute conviction, the world pays attention. A single word, if delivered with strength and truth, has the ability to shake empires, to change alliances, to bend the arc of history itself. This is not exaggeration. This is reality. The greatest revolutions did not always begin with armies marching or with weapons firing. They often began with words. Words ignite the fire in people. Words change the way entire nations see themselves. And when that word is decisive, when it refuses compromise, when it refuses to bend to intimidation, then you are no longer just speaking, you are reshaping the very foundations of the world order. Think about the history of mankind. There were times when one word redefined everything. Freedom, independence, justice, equality. Each of those words, when declared at the right moment, carried the force of a hammer striking the chains of oppression. They inspired millions to rise, to fight, to endure, to win. And today in this new world, we witnessed again how one word can redraw the balance. Not because it was loud, not because it was filled with rage, but because it carried conviction, because it was undeniable, because it came from a place of strength that the powerful could not ignore. For too long, there has been a belief in certain circles that they control the script of the world. They decide the roles, they assign the positions, they determine who leads and who follows. They speak and others listen. They command and others obey. But that illusion only lasts until someone dares to tear the script apart and write their own. And that is what happens when a decisive word is spoken. It says no to submission. It says no to the arrogance of the few. It says yes to dignity, yes to equality, yes to sovereignty. And when that happens, the old balance begins to crack. The powerful nations expect the rest of the world to nod, to bow, to accept their so-called order. But the moment one voice rises and refuses to do so, everything changes. Because power is fragile. It is never as solid as it appears. It looks invincible, but in truth it rests on obedience. Take away obedience, and the empire begins to stumble. Take away fear, and the empire begins to fall. That is why a single word matters so much. That is why it can redraw the balance. Because it shows that obedience is not guaranteed, that fear is not eternal, that respect cannot be forced. It must be earned. A decisive word can travel faster than armies, faster than missiles, faster than sanctions. It travels through the minds of people. It tells them that they are not weak, that they are not alone, that they too can rise. It inspires others to find their own voice. And one day you reach a point where the weight that once crushed you is no longer heavy. You can lift it with ease. That is the moment of transformation. That is the moment when you realize your strength is greater than you imagined. Nations are the same. For years they may bend under the weight of intimidation, but when the moment comes that they stand tall and lift that weight off their shoulders, everything changes. That is what we saw. That is what that word represented. It was the moment of transformation. And now the world cannot go back. The balance is redrawn. The old order is weakened. The new order is rising. And it began not with bombs, not with armies, but single decisive words spoken at the right moment, with the right conviction in front of the right audience. That is the true power of words. That is why the mighty trembled before them. That is why they were shaken, because deep inside they knew the truth. The balance has shifted, and nothing they do can fully stop it.